Joining us now on both sides of the political spectrum, Joe Lestingi, political strategist on the left, and on the right, Alice Stewart, a Republican strategist. Both of you Skyping in today. It's great to have you with us.
Great to be here. Thank you. Big
day.
Great
to be here. Thanks for having us.
It is a big day, and we will get to the court in just a second, but I would be remiss if I did not get your take on the Rose Garden statement yesterday by President Obama. As in the wake of the court striking down Mr. Obama over recess appointments, and then the frustration the president had about the failure of the House of Representatives to pass so-called comprehensive immigration reform. The president, while he didn't specifically say it yesterday, there's always the temptation that someone on the left will double down. So Alice, first to you, do you believe this president will try to unilaterally set up some form of amnesty, avoiding the Congress?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's done it before and he'll do it again. What I find disturbing is that on the heels of the Supreme Court ruling last week, unanimously, 9-0, they say, look, you're overstepping your constitutional authorities with regard to the recess appointments. They say, you're not king, you're the president. And here he is. That's exactly what he was trying to do yesterday in the Rose Garden, saying, blaming everything, all of the problems with the immigration on GOP inability to act, when the truth of the matter is Republicans from the very beginning have said, if we want to address the immigration problem, we're happy to do so, but we need to secure the border first. First and foremost, before we do anything, secure the border first. And the fact that we haven't done that, that's exactly the reason we're in the situation we are now, where we have tens of thousands of illegal immigrants coming into this country from the border because he didn't listen to Republicans in securing the border. And he made it evidently clear that he has his pen, he has his phone, he's willing to use executive action yet again to make up for what are his failed immigration policies and not Republicans.
Joe, in your response, I have to tell you, I'm one who's had my suspicions, but yesterday, despite voicing disapproval and all the things that we've come to expect of the president, he didn't talk about specific action. And politically, it always comes back to the numbers, does it not? I mean, the new poll from Investors Business Daily says that fully 59% of respondents disagree with the president's reaction to immigration, or wanting to take action now, his immigration policy in general. So is this a situation where the president is listening to public opinion, or do you expect him to take action later this summer?
Well, heaven forbid someone in Washington decided that they actually wanted to show some leadership on an issue. And sometimes the public isn't fully aware of what's going on. As you just said, he didn't quite outline what he was going to do by executive order, but my colleague on the right just said he's overstepping his bounds on details that didn't exist, apparently. And the public says they disagree with what he's going to do. But again, those details haven't come out yet. So they're disagreeing with something that doesn't yet exist. The truth is that the situation down on the border is tragic, and it's very sad. I mean, what gets lost in this debate is that these children could almost be qualified, as they have been by the UN, as refugees. If they return home, they will be turned into child soldiers and child gang members, and if they refuse, they get dismembered and hung in public. Those are the realities. Now, we can sit here and talk about cliches of securing the border, which we've been saying for the past decade and a half. While Republicans had the White House and they had both chambers of Congress, they did nothing on this issue. 2/3 of groups in D.C. need to be involved to pass a law: the president, the Senate, and Congress. The Senate passed a law that the president agrees with. It's sitting in Congress waiting for their action.
Well, conversely, there are plenty of bills the House passes sitting at the door of the Senate that Harry Reid will not bring up because there are differences of opinion among duly elected leaders. The disturbing thing, Joe, the statement from Dick Durbin, the senior Democrat from Illinois, saying in essence the president can, quote, borrow constitutional power. I don't think there's any situation where a chief executive can, quote, borrow power.
I think Senator Durbin may have mixed his words a bit, but here's the reality. Congress passes laws, and it's the president's job to implement and enforce those laws. So as long as he operates within the bounds of the law, he can move his agencies to do what he wants. And what did come out of yesterday's conference was he is going to move immigration resources from the interior of the country down to the border to help with the processing. we do have illegal immigrants that exist in Kansas and Nebraska that are being processed. He's talking about moving those resources closer to the Mexican border to help deal with the huge influx of these children that are in dire squalor situations.
And what was left silent, at least to my ears, Alice, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like Joe is headed in the area where the president will move resources to expedite bringing the kids across the border. Do you have that suspicion, Alice?
That's exactly what we're hearing. And also remind him that when the president was first elected into office and he promised to make immigration reform, he did have control of the House and Senate and failed to make any true immigration reform. So that's an important note, a distinction to make as well. And it was clear yesterday that he does have a plan. While he did not outline it, he is, in my view, he is going to he indicated he's going to use resources from the Interior Department and shift some manpower to the border because clearly Rick Perry is screaming for help. He says this is a national disaster, which needs to be done.
Yeah, but to be fair about it, Alice, Rick Perry could call out his National Guard right now. He's talked about putting the Texas Rangers there. Ditto for Governor Jan Brewer of Arizona. Now listen, 3 minutes remain, so we need to shift to Hobby Lobby. Joe will let you take a first crack at the Hobby Lobby decision, and then we'll have Alice respond. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I think that we all can agree that religious freedom is an important part of the fabric of our country. And I think this court case, unfortunately, is a blow to many groups, particularly women out there who will now be treated differently than their male colleagues. I think this court, the Roberts Court, has a very interesting history that's going to be written about it. I mean, when we look at the Fuller Court and some of the other courts, we look at Plessy versus Ferguson, areas where discrimination, where two groups of people could be treated differently, were codified by Supreme Court ruling. They were later overturned. I think this court and its corporation, our people sort of mentality, is going to have a rough time in the history books.
Alice, your thoughts on this decision issued yesterday by the court?
Well, on that note, religious freedoms are important in this country, and thank goodness the High Court agreed. Business owners that have faith, and that is a core part of who they are and their core convictions, shouldn't have to check their faith at the open for business sign. They should be able to practice their faith as they do in their personal life, but if they have hard-held religious convictions against something, they should be able to make those decisions with their employees. And it's key here when they have strong religious beliefs against abortifacients, abortion-inducing drugs, they shouldn't have to provide that to their employees. And it's key here. I'm a woman. I don't feel like this has been an affront on me or an affront on women, because we're talking about 20 different contraceptives that are part of this plan. They're only addressing 4 of them, the most harsh, life-taking, abortion-inducing, life-ending drugs. There's still 16 other contraceptives out there that women across this country can avail themselves of. So Democrats and liberals fail to mention the fact that we're not taking every single contraceptive away from women. We're just taking 4 that end life. And life is an important issue in this country for people.
Joe, with a minute left, you heard Alice, not only
Alice
a Republican strategist, a woman saying which is larger, 16 or 4.
And Alice is very lucky, I would assume, then, that she's one of the women who doesn't have to use one of those 4 methods. Unfortunately, women's bodies can react differently to different drugs in different situations. And if a woman cannot use one of the other 16 and is restricted to use one of the 4, she is now being discriminated against.
And are those in fact medical diagnoses with which you are familiar?
Certain women cannot. They will have adverse reactions to the hormones that are used in the other versions that will prevent the egg from being fertilized in the first place. Sometimes, and this is why these forms exist. When women cannot use one of the other drugs, the market for these drugs begin to grow for new adaptations.
Well, but then the question remains, who needs to pay for that, and can it be paid for another way? This debate will continue. Alice Stewart, Joe Lestingi, we're up against the clock. Thanks so much for your input. America's Forum is coming right back following this break.